what's your ethos? Okay, what underpins your ethos? What underpins your pedagogy as a person, as a practitioner?
Being in the moment and being present with the children is really, really important, because the observation, the assessment, the planning, it can really, really take over.
Long-term investment in your child, that although practitioners all have a long-term investment and all care very much, obviously they're not necessarily going to spend all of that time with your child.
I'm Stacy Mann, Early Years and Childcare Specialist for NCFE Cash, and I have worked in the sector in the early years sector for the past 21 years, which goes incredibly quickly when you're working in this industry. I started off as a nursery nurse and worked up to nursery manager, children's centre manager, and then mostly over the last 13 years I've done assessing, tutoring, mentoring, and completed my teaching qualifications, and I've only been here really since September, so still very much in my honeymoon period. I've got two beautiful little girls, aged 7 and 6, and I think they'll be very relevant to the conversation today, where talking about communication and things like that, and them returning to school and how that has impacted on them going in and out, and so lots to talk about specifically as a parent, I suppose.
I'm Jennifer Staunton, known to others as Jen Staunton, okay, and I work for School Improvement Liverpool. I'm a quality improvement officer, an early years quality improvement officer, and it's been my privilege and absolute pleasure to work in the early years sector for the last 27 years. I've had different roles, so I started my career very like Stacey. I think we're so similar in what we've done throughout our career. So I trained as a nursery nurse when I left school, managed a day nursery, went on to decide that I wanted to go back to university. After having two of my own children, decided I wanted to go back to university and train as an early years teacher. I've gone on to train to master's level. Then I've managed a rather large early years department, including a children's centre. And I'm now also, so I've got a couple of hats at the moment. So I'm now also the programme leader for Early Years Senko Award that School Improvement Liverpool developed. And we've got the backing of the DFE and NASON, and it's also a cash qualification. So I'm the programme leader for that. I've also got 3 children, so they come in handy every now and then, don't they? But yeah, that's me.
They really do. I often refer to my children when I'm training and when I'm having conversations like this, because it's relevant, isn't it? You've been through it yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's really important when you're working with the sector, with the practitioners and parents, to that they understand, some of the struggles, some of the challenges, but more importantly, some of the things that they celebrate. So that, for me, that's really important.
Yeah, I think it's always important being able to share bits of yourself that are relevant. But obviously there's also that caveat that there are things that aren't always helpful to share. So there's that judging, I suppose, things as and when they crop up, as to it might be relevant, for example, to share my health condition with one person that I'm working with, but not be relevant to share it with someone else, in terms of it's that, I suppose, when I did part of a social work degree at some point, and then life happened. And in that part of a social work degree, the thing I think I kept most from that is that it's asking who you're sharing that information for. Is it for the benefit of that person and to help them to understand how you can help, or to do that bit? Or are you sharing it just because you want them to know? And that's that.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying there, Dawn, because realistically, I've worked with lots of parents that haven't had my experiences and haven't, their life's different, and we're all individuals, and like we treat children as individuals. It's really important to remember that parents and carers are also individuals with their own life experiences. So I think one thing I've learned through, in leadership posts and practice posts, is that everyone's different, and everyone has their own story, and everyone's got their own challenges, and everyone, have got their own skills. And I think that as an educational professional, I think it's really important that you remember that when you're working with children and families. I think Yeah, it's key.
Looking at the way the world works now in terms of the way everything is so polarized, and we've got this whole social media, even in real life now, we're having a conversation where it is, I've picked the cleanest corner of my house and we're sitting, and no one's really, like, everything's like Instagram now. Like, there's this whole, like, if you don't agree with someone, or that there's friction, or you've got an opposite opinion, they're obviously a horrible person, so just cut them out of your life and stop following them, like, and it's really weird that we're no longer in a place where we, like, talk to people about why they think the things they think, or what experiences have led them to that, from the point of view that actually we might learn something. Like, I've never learned anything from anyone who 100% agrees with us.
We learn from people, don't we, in conversations, and what we see and what we hear, and actually taking in other people's life experience. I'm sitting here listening to you, both of you, and thinking, wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I'll take that on. So you do. Yeah, I've never learned from anyone actually who's got the same opinion as me sometimes, because we've got in my house. So it's so funny because my husband's quite opinionated, so we have quite, like, political talks around the table. He's like really political. We don't talk about policies, procedures, or politics around our table. That's the rule, because my daughters, who are 22 and 19, also have their own opinions. But it's really good, isn't it? It's really good that they can express those opinions. So yeah, no, it's so true.
Such lovely conversations come around that sort of scenario, though, don't you think? I have a lot of lovely conversations when I'm eating, and when I'm with the family and we're all talking. My husband is very opinionated as well, and he's but I like that. That's why we're together. He challenges me in conversation. He doesn't always agree with what I say, and he has, as much as he thinks he's got a growth mindset, he's sometimes got a very fixed mindset. And sometimes I have to say to him, well, think of it from this point of view. And he'll take that on board. But then the children are listening to that, which I think is important for them to see us challenging each other in conversation, not always agreeing, and for them to have their voice as well. And trust me, they have their voice in that arena. They will, while they're eating their spag bowl, they'll have a conversation with me about everything. And they really have some strong opinions that are quite profound. For a 7-year-old and a 6-year-old, you think, wow. And that's happened in when I've worked in nurseries, and when I've worked specifically as a relaxed kids coach and working with mindfulness and children and parents and teenagers, where they've just had these lovely conversations that have stopped me and made me think about something in a completely different way. I love that.
I love it too. Oh, you've got me off now, Stacey, because I absolutely love it. So there is nothing better than a conversation with a 2-year-old. Okay, in my opinion, there is nothing better than that conversation with a 2-year-old. But you've got to be a very special person to really get into that conversation, okay? Because what you think they're having a conversation about might be totally different, right? So it's about, I suppose, that goes back to your pedagogy, isn't it? How you believe children learn, how they experience things. You want to engage them. So I remember sitting, this is the truth, sitting in like the home corner with a group of children. I'm just sitting on the stool somewhere, and a little girl come up to me. She was actually nearly 3-year-old, okay? And she came up to me and she said, "Miss, would you like something to drink?" And I said, "Yes, please. Yes, I'd like something to drink." And I said, "Oh, I'll have a cup of tea." She says, "What is a cup of tea?" And she didn't know what. And I said, "Oh, don't you know what a cup of tea is?" I said, "Don't you have cup of teas in your house?" And she looks at me and went, "No, my mum drinks coffee." I said, "Oh, right." So I said, "I'll have a cup of coffee, but I tell you what, I'll have a cup of tea." I do like a cup of tea. So I had to go through the whole rigmarole of getting a tea bag, putting it in the cup, and we were showing her how to do it and mixing it all up and having a little drink, of this cup of tea. And she says, "I wouldn't drink that. It's full of mud." Because he leaves for mud. So I always remember, so you think, she's just relating what she knows from, like, her own experiences and her like what she's learned in a home life and what she sees outside to what we're doing. So it's like really important, isn't it, that those experiences are shaped by their own, and and we shape them and give them those skills more. So I just love children. I can't even tell you how much. I don't think I'll ever grow up, because I absolutely love between the ages of 0 and 7. Really, after 7, I like them. They're all right. Okay, I do. I like them, but they're all right. But I just love that those early years where we can put everything into them like a sponge, and they take everything in, and we're helping shape that amazing little person that they are I always say, yesterday I was delivering training, and I was saying to a group of Senkos, and I said, you could have in your classroom, in your settings, you could have the next Prime Minister. And someone said, oh, I've got a few bodices in my class, Jenny. Okay, so you could have, I said, I don't care who you've got in your class, you could have the next Prime Minister. And, let's not put glass ceilings on these children, because they are really amazing.
And what's really interesting about you saying it needing to be a special person to engage in those conversations with children, I think that's really interesting, because I see, when I'm in settings, I see a lot of adults who stop the learning journey sometimes in communication by thinking that there's a place for them when there really isn't. Such as if there's something going on in the home corner, for example, all the children are making something or they're doing something, and a practitioner looks at that and thinks, I could inject some communication here, so I'll go in and do my adult role. Which is to sit down and go, who's going to make me a cup of tea? And by doing that, you're stopping their conversation straight away, aren't you? Actually, there's not a space for you at that particular time. And at that moment in time, they were in the middle of making a lasagna, and you've just stopped them from doing that. So it's that whole wait, watch, wonder, isn't it? Waiting and watching to see what unfolds, and then wondering whether there is a place.
So I think that you gain that through experience. So I think, through experience, practitioners gain that. And I think it's important to know your children. So again, knowing the child, being comfortable in your own practice, okay, and understanding what they need. I often call that interrupting. So you're not, it's not scaffolding learning. Sometimes that's interrupting, but you've got to have those skills, the skills and knowledge to know when that's right to interrupt play and when to take it to the next level, and the way, and in using the environment to really to do that. So, and again, but for me, it's about knowing the child, isn't it? That's the key. Knowing what makes that child tick, and what you need to give to build that child's knowledge and build their language and experience. Vocabulary is really difficult to build. Did you know? I'm full of random facts, okay? And children need to hear a word, one single word, more than 200 times. So they need to, before they can say it, they need to hear it more than 200 times. So if you're thinking about what, their experiences, who talks to them, when they talk to, what type of, it's not just, communication isn't just language. It's emotions, it's your body language. It starts in lots of different ways. If you think about that baby, when that baby cries, that's a communication, or when they wriggle in the cot or squeak, or all those things, that starts that communication. So I suppose you're right. It's sometimes when you watch practitioners, when you stand back, you watch practitioners and how they scaffold and experiences and challenge children's thinking, because we must challenge children. It's really important. Like we're all challenged today. Would you agree? Everyone's challenged. You like to be challenged, children. So it's really important that people understand how their role develops children. Okay, and gives them those skills. So, but that's down to experience. Often you see, and do you know what? It can be really people who think they're doing best. So everyone, I always remember. Okay, so let's take when one of my sessions were being inspected. So it was the days Stacey will remember. So this was 2013-14. Was this inspection, the days when you didn't get any notice. So my setting was being inspected, and my practitioners were like, I went to say, oh, they've turned up, so the inspectors are here, I'll show them round in a minute, don't worry. They were like, oh, Jenny, what shall we get out? What shall we do? And I was like, nothing. Just be yourself, okay? Be yourself. It doesn't. You do what you do every day for these children, and ensure that you just show what you do. And they did, and it was lovely. There was a little boy. He was wanted to be a snake. Okay, he wanted to be a snake under the slide outside. But we've been doing lots of sounds, right? Okay, so he was going, I'm a snake under the slide, and I thought, that's amazing for a 2-year-old. So I just stood. Someone else said, would you like to go in the sands? And I was like, oh no, stop it, just let him carry on. That practitioner was thinking, oh, I've got it. She knew she was being watched by the inspector, and she said, oh, she must have been thinking, I need to challenge that. Jenny's always going on about that next step. But actually, at that moment, that child was doing it for himself. Okay, it didn't need us. But that's just being comfortable and confidence, isn't it? It's just confidence in doing it.
And being present, isn't it? Being present and in the moment with that child. The communication, just the language just comes, doesn't it? I think the vocabulary over the past year, we've all grown in our vocabulary bank, haven't we? We've got new words that we weren't using this time last year. And the children in our care are learning new words this year in particular, aren't they? Because of the pandemic, and learning all of these different words that they're coming out with you that you weren't expecting them to. But I think being in the moment and being present with the children is really, really important, because the observation, the assessment, the planning, it can really, really take over. I remember I was supporting a children's centre in Wolverhampton, and they were having some consultation visits, support with observation, assessment and planning, because they had gone from having 4 sheets of paper of planning to 16 pieces of paper for planning per week. They couldn't explain it to me, and I said to them, right, well, show me what your typical day is like. And they said, well, this one little boy that we're working with, his communication is a bit lower than what we would expect, so we're really trying to work on him speaking really during activities. Right, okay, so I'll observe you doing that. So they had a tough tray. They had lots of different natural things in there, leaves and twigs and mud and all sorts, and the dinosaurs, which he was really interested in. And he was having this wonderful just moment by himself, talking with these dinosaurs. There was lots of language going on, and his key person shouted from one side of the room to the other to her colleague, "He's talking, pass me the iPad." And they got the iPad, which was massive, and took a photo of him for observation, to back up observation. And I said, what are you doing? Because what happened to him then, of course, was he stopped talking, because I would have done as well. And he just stopped, and I took her to one side. She was a lovely, lovely practitioner that had lost her way a little bit. And I'd said to her, why are you doing that? And she said, I'm fearful that I'm going to miss something. I'm fearful that I'm going to miss something to capture within assessment. And I think, again, that comes back to the confidence of practitioner in really just believing that being there and as a parent as well, being there and talking to the children is enough.
Absolutely. It is. And I completely agree. But again, that goes back to confidence. So how do you build the confidence in that practitioner? And for me, it's about ensuring that, you've got a really, really detailed and continued professional development plan, so that you've got that, and you don't do training for training's sake, okay? That what's your intent of your training, what you want to get from it, okay? Where are we seeing that impact in practice? So if you're a setting owner manager, you're thinking about that carefully. So you're thinking about a really carefully planned continued professional development. We have to invest in our workforce. It's essential. We stagnate. It's like water. If we don't carry on, I joined a a session last night. I often, I think it's really important that we access relevant training that's up to date, that's got some research behind it, that's got, those type of things. So that, because if you're inspired, if you go to a training course as a practitioner, let's take communication and language, if you're inspired to want to know more, that's not going to stop, is it? Because that course stops. Because, you're going to inspire them. So it's about really good leadership and management that recognise the importance of a well-planned and training plan. Okay, when well-planned and, research-led training plans, that's my opinion. And you will inspire, because everyone in early years, I've never met anyone who was in it for the money. Okay? Never, ever. No one's. You're not going to be a millionaires. Okay, I always say it, you're never going to be a millionaire, but you will shape millions of hearts and millions of lives. So it's really important that you remember that. So no one would not want a child to progress, or think that. But it's about ensuring that they understand and be confident in what they do. And you know what? I love working with our workforce in Liverpool and beyond, because I'm lucky enough to work across the country now. So that, for me, I'm completely inspired every session I go to, or every practitioner I speak to. I'm like, oh, what have I learned from you? Amazing. What did you do? What did you say? Okay, so I ask questions. So I just hope that that's what we do as a service. That's what we do as professionals, sitting here today. I hope we're inspiring others to really think about their practice, reflect on their practice. Sometimes we don't have time to reflect because we do things because we think we've got to do it, and we don't have time to think about the impact of that. So it's really important, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think there's a thing there in terms of it not just being about training, in terms of that there's lots of practitioners out there who want to be invested in and want to do training and want to do development that is, standardized or is a piece of training or a qualification, but obviously that infrastructure isn't there within their workplace or within where they work. So that there is a lot that practitioners can do to support and scaffold their own learning, or to start those things ticking, things like building a personal learning network. And it might be on Twitter, it might be joining the EY tag team on Twitter and doing some sharing online, or maybe even starting your own YouTube channel, and doing some activities so that other people can see what you're doing. And
there's nothing better, Dawn, I agree, there's nothing better than peer support. So, there's nothing better than peer support. We advocate networks, we advocate working together, we advocate, staying in touch with each other. There's nothing better. You're right, social media, we live in another world now, don't we? Even considered from last year, there's social media is really good, isn't it? It's a platform where we can share ideas. I also think making sure that you realise what skills you've got in your own setting, because sometimes we don't know what others know.
Cash Alumni, the fastest growing network of current and future professionals in care, health and education. You can join us for free at cashalumni.org.uk and get access to articles from subject specialists and experts, e-learning to a discount and benefits scheme, and lots of support with career development and your future growth.
I think one of the biggest things that I always talk about is that actually we children and adults learn together. So in my nursery where I worked, I was always saying, we're a gang of learners, aren't we? Okay, we learn from each other and we learn from the children, and that's the best professional development, isn't it? Really, because I've never met one child that's the same as the other. So you have to learn every day. So it's so true, isn't it? I think it's so true. It is so true. I've never met the same child twice.
It does really challenge you as a parent, and I'd even as a parent with early years qualifications, I think that's sometimes a hindrance rather than a.
So do you not think sometimes that's harder because you beat yourself up as a professional for not being able to apply that, but actually there's a whole other barrier as a parent in that, first of all, you're stuck with that child, you don't get to give them back at the end of the day. So there is that, I can't just be, this person, I need to be the other side of that as well. There's also that obviously long-term investment in your child that although practitioners all have a long-term investment and all care very much. Obviously, they're not necessarily going to spend all of that time with your child until they're 18, and there's that sort of there's that personal relationship that is difficult or insurmountable often when trying to approach things with your practitioner hat on.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in terms of behaviour, more than for me, it's been around behaviour.
But do you think it's harder to ask for help as a practitioner? Do you know what I mean? Like to be able to put yourself out there and go, I'm struggling with this, because you feel like you should know better, even though it's not the same.
Yeah, everybody thinks you, and I thought myself actually when I had my first baby, and everybody expected me to be a good mom straight away. Like you've worked with babies since you were 16, like, you know, and prior to that I was teaching dance when I was from the age of 13, you know, and everybody just there was an expectation. I think I may have put that expectation on myself, but I do think that everybody else thought it as well, and probably checked in on me less. I think the midwives and the health visitors checked in on me less because of my age as well, because I was 30 when I had my first. And so I remember the health visitor saying to me, actually, when she came to visit, she didn't look up from her notepad. And I said to her, have you got a lot to do today? You know, is your caseload quite high? And she said, yes, but you're a quick one because you're a geriatric parent, and I've got a lot of young mums that need more support than you do.
Like how stuff's changed, because my mum had the opposite experience, because my mum was 30 when she had me, 29, and was classed as a geriatric parent, like especially back in the 80s. Do you know what I mean? Like it was different and almost, but my mum was sort of told that you know made her more likely to be a neurotic parent, and basically, even though I've always had this genetic health condition that I've got, like it took until I was like 17 to get a diagnosis, because on my medical records from being a baby, it basically says, oh, don't listen to this parent because she's obsessed with our baby because it took her so long to get, you know, because she was so old when she had her. So there was like an actual thing on my medical record saying that, like, my mum kept bringing us to doctors and there were loads of different things wrong with us. And that was because she was a geriatric parent, rather than, you know, this woman keeps bringing her child to the doctors and there's loads of different things wrong with her. Maybe there's loads of different things. Maybe this is a thing, you know, like, so she had like the opposite experience, in that like she was sort of under a microscope for those exact same reasons.
Yeah, I think I didn't really trust my gut instinct until Zara came along, until the second baby came along. And there's only 15 months between my two. But I was very theoretical, I would say, with my first one. I know childcare, I know early years. This is how this is going to go. Whereas when Zara came along, I was like, there's no theory to this. There's no theory to being a parent. This is different, and I've got to find my own way, and I've got to trust my gut instinct. And I say that to all of my friends that have now become parents as well. Just trust what works for you, and just do whatever you think is best, because your gut instinct's there for a reason.
It's really hard as a parent, isn't it? You know, as a parent and being a professional. So, you know, it's really, really hard working in that field. I don't think I ever worried. I'm not going to lie. I'm like, I worry more now as they've got older than when they were younger. So I'm worry more, am I doing the right thing now? And, you know, as they've got older. I was 19 when I had my first child. So I was young when I had my, you know, young nursery nurse. So I was a young nursery nurse. And I always remember looking into the window of the baby room where my little girl was at the time, thinking, I want so much more for you. You know, but actually when I look back now, I think, what a career, okay, what an amazing career, and I wouldn't change it at all. And I wouldn't change when I had the children and my children, and I'm going to grow old and grow old with when they're getting a bit older and things. So I wouldn't change any of that. But I do think you do put added pressures on yourself. So when are they walking? When are they talking? All those things that we need to think about. My daughter had a stammer, so my daughter was non-fluent. She just couldn't get her words out, and her behaviour was. She was obviously showing me something. So I don't like talking about negative behaviour. I actually don't refer to it as that at all. I call it distress behaviour. So she was distressed, and I thought it was because I had a new baby, etc. And it wasn't. It was because. She just couldn't get her words out. She just was struggling. She had to have quite a lot of intervention around for speech and language intervention. But picking up on what you said around singing, that's how we got through it. So we used to sing things, and she'd sing, and she's actually a very able little girl, and she's now more than able. She's first class degree and masters, so she's very able. But yeah, so developing her language was quite difficult, and I didn't worry, but I did beat myself up over it. So what am I doing for her? How am I giving her the best experience? So we read loads of books, we sang loads of songs, we all those things, everything that you talk about in practice now. Okay, so I talk about that love of reading, that love of singing, developing that language, making sure that you use every opportunity to build on children's vocabulary, that we're really putting time into that. So that was what I did with my own children. With Amy, actually, she's fine now. She was about 5 when we stopped speech and language therapist intervention.
What are your thoughts on technology, Jen? Because obviously, talking is something I did all the time. I narrated everything that I did. I'm sure I still do get on my children's nerves, talking about exactly what I'm doing and narrating everything that I'm doing, so that I knew that there was lots of words going on in the home. But now with technology being used more, and sometimes I've seen people walking along with, mums walking along with pushchairs with their headphones on, and the child facing the other way, and lots of iPads and tablets being used by children really, really young. I know you can get a tablet holder for a cot now. You can get a tablet holder for a bouncer. What are your thoughts on technology and communication and language?
So I think it's got its place. Okay, so we've got children who are going to be the next adults, and we live in that world now. So we've got to accept that. So we have to accept that technology has its place, and children need to learn those skills in order for them to be successful socially, and economically. So we have to. It's got its place. I don't think we can ever take away the value of actually talking to children, looking eye contact, so they can see your emotions on your lips, that you're a real person. I think we can't take that away. I think there's got to be a balance. So, we understand the future, but there has to be a balance where we model language, and that children can see you emotionally, what you're doing.
Do you think part of that is that when you're conversing with a child, or you're talking with a child live, there is that waiting for interaction back, and that sort of expectation that the child will respond, whereas with technology there isn't? So I don't have children, but what I do have is a habit for trying to learn languages. So for me, I can watch a documentary in German and I can understand every single word of it, and I can absorb that language, and I can know what's happening, and I could tell you what every person said as they were saying it. But I couldn't. Having a conversation's different. Being able to use language and to respond to questions and to be able to come up with a sentence of your own on the spot is a completely different skill. Do you think that that's part of what's being lost with that sort of screen-based babysitter?
So you need that two-way response, don't you? So it's really important. Children, retrieval of information is really important. So when they're developing, when the brain's developing, we need to be thinking about that long-term, short-term memory and retrieval of that information. So if it's just from a screen, they're watching something on a screen, they're more likely, okay, because some things do, so they're more likely not to have that experience. So that's important. But as I said, I think we've got to have a little bit of both moving forward. The mother tongue, there's nothing better than the child's mother tongue, listening to that, whether that's a man or woman or whatever, if we need to that we have to, that mother tongue, that what they hear, that family voice around them, that's really important. I also think that, and connecting with them, they recognise that. So my niece talks American because she watches this Barbie thing on YouTube. She's 3, and she goes to soccer, and I'm like, oh, she says, pass me the soccer ball, and I'm like, Eva, it's a football, okay, but just learn that from the screen. But you're right, because you also need to know when to talk and when not to talk, and when it's your turn, my turn, like the tennis ball thing. Okay, your turn, my turn. They learning those skills very early is important, and you see that in babies. Watch them. You go, and they'll go, boo, back, and they'll note that they need to do that here, but you've not just spoken to them, have you? You give them that boo or boo, and they can see that, and straight away they're going to come back to you and go boo. They try it, or they watch your lips. So babies, young children, watch your lips. If you go ma, they'll go and you can see them trying to imitate what you're doing. And then if you're like that, yay, clapping, you're giving them those, I've done something really good, I'm going to do it again because I just like what she's done then. Okay, so that's what they're thinking. So absolutely, there's nothing better than human interaction, okay? But I suppose we have to prepare our children for the future. So we can't take technology away. It's about having a balance. I think that's about, if you're thinking about nurseries and settings, it's about making sure that your curriculum is appropriate to that. Okay, so the curriculum that you put in place takes all that into consideration and the child's needs. Okay, so what's that child interested in? What can we use? What's the balance of all this? There's a lot to think about.
There's a lot to think about, and I think behaviours and things like that you always learn in a social context, and sometimes I don't think that all adults at the moment either are learning how to self-regulate without having a device to help with.
Actually, Stacey, I was going to ask you a question about self-regulation based on something you said earlier on, because earlier on you said that you sort of went back to parenting more on instinct. And what I was going to ask is, in terms of, just applying that to anyone who might be listening, do you think maybe you're underselling some of those skills that you've got in terms of your reflective practice and your ability to be able to discern what you're doing on instinct as being an instinctual thing that is good versus that instinctual reaction, for example, because we react in a certain way when we feel attacked or when everything's getting on top of us, and those instinctual reactions aren't necessarily a positive thing. Do you think that your focus on self-regulation and your focus on that reflective practice and being able to co-regulate actually makes that instinctive stuff easier? Could you be dismissing your actual skill set in talking that way about it?
In short, yes. Absolutely, yes. I think the more I learn about self-regulation, the more I learn about brain development, then co-regulation, and all of those things have definitely helped as a parent on how to respond to things. But I don't know whether I think I compare myself to my mum quite a lot, as we probably all do, and other adults in our lives that have been impactful, and she just seemed to naturally know how to be a mom, and always has. And she didn't have any training. She didn't have any theory to go with it. She just trusted herself. And so, yes and no, I suppose it's a bit of both, I think, and that I've started to trust myself a little bit more in my skill set. Yeah, definitely. But I think I never personally, as a parent, I never used technology to calm my children down. I think I'm the best person to help them with that. I understand why lots of people do use it to, like they're crying, so but I don't think they're then having that opportunity to learn how to deal with that particular situation. So, for example, we went to the doctors a couple of months before the pandemic, so over a year ago. And I knew we were going to be sat there for a long time, so we took a load of books with us. I took a bag with their favourite stories in, and we sat in the waiting room reading stories to each other, which was lovely because I was working a lot that week. I hadn't had that opportunity to connect with them. And the doctor was so shocked when I went in the room. She was like, "You brought books with you? Haven't you got a phone?" Sort of conversation we had. And I was like, "Well, no, I'm here. I can help with that. I can help her wait in that situation because it is a long time to wait. But that's teaching her how to be patient. It's teaching her how things are not just instantly given to you, because we do have everything at our fingertips, don't we now?
Children do think that that everything's immediate, don't they now? So that's something. But I think what we need to be really picking up from that, Stacey, is that not all parents understand that. So, it's about us upskilling parents or working with parents to give them those, that advice and those tips. And they'll go, "Oh yeah, I didn't realise that." Yeah, well, that share, because we're the experts in education. We're the experts in early years. We know it. We're so we know that. But my husband's he's a joiner, so he might know that it's okay. And his own experience, you just don't know those things. He might know that actually we teach by saying to them, "Oh no, we've got to wait a little bit longer. Would you like to draw a picture, or would you like to?"
Yeah.
You might.
And not everybody had a mum like Stacey.
And so that's again taking us back to experience, isn't it? It's taking it to experience and what you've got. But I suppose going back to you as a practitioner, if you're working closely with parents and things, it's really important that you develop that relationship and that you can support them around those type of things. So if you identify self-regulation's an issue or a barrier to that child's learning, what you're doing in nursery, we need to think about, can that happen at home? So how are you supporting that parent at home with that? So and I don't think, we've all been in lockdown, haven't we? We've all been trying to work from home, homeschool, and listen, I've been a teacher for a long time, right? But I definitely don't do secondary maths. So if you're thinking about it, we've all gone. Adam's come to me and he said, "Mum, can I get Mum? I've done my maths now," and I've gone, "Oh yeah, just go. Yeah, can I play on my game?" And I've gone, "Yeah, okay," because I've still got things to do. Where realistically, maybe I should be saying, "No, let me have a little look, and is there something else you can do?" And he does read, so, but it's about us supporting parents, isn't it? Okay, and giving them and skilling them up. So I talk about lots of things. We have a toolbox, and I always say to my Senkos, to my early years Senko, "What's in your Senko toolbox?" Okay, that'll support you as a practitioner, that'll support you as a parent, support your parent, but more importantly, what'll support that child. So what's in your Senko toolbox? The first thing that should come out your toolbox should be anything to do with that child. And we go on about it, so it's something to do. And then if you think about a practitioner setting, what's your ethos? Okay, what underpins your ethos? What underpins your pedagogy as a person, as a practitioner? But the ethos, how are we living that out? And the first thing we should be doing is working in partnership with our parents and our carers to better outcomes for children, to give them the life chances that they so truly deserve. And but we've got to do it together. So it's not on our own, it's together.
And thanks to you at home. Don't forget, for more great content tailored towards those working in care, health and education, it's free to join our network and you gain access to some great articles, videos and resources to support your career, and some information about career development, as well as our members' discount and benefits scheme. And if you'd like to feature on a future episode of Podcash, please get in touch at alumni@cash.org.uk. Until next time, take care.